There are moments that change a person's life forever. A single phone call, a knock at the door, a face in a crowd. But sometimes, it begins with something so ordinary that nobody gives it a second thought. A plain white envelope, no stamp, no return address, no name anyone recognized. Just one sentence written in neat black ink. The first one disappears tonight. Burn this letter if you want to live. Most people would call it a cruel prank. Some would laugh and throw it away without another thought. Others might keep it out of curiosity. But in one quiet American neighborhood, that single sentence became the beginning of a mystery that would leave families searching for answers. Neighbors afraid to open their mailboxes, and investigators chasing a trail that seemed to vanish every time they thought they were getting closer. Before this story reaches its unbelievable conclusion, you'll discover why one forgotten letter changed an entire community forever. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. It was the kind of autumn morning that felt almost too peaceful to remember. The trees lining Maple Ridge Drive had turned brilliant shades of orange, gold, and deep crimson. Fallen leaves drifted slowly across quiet sidewalks as a cool breeze carried the familiar scent of wood smoke from distant fireplaces. Children had already left for school. Parents were beginning their daily routines. Lawn sprinklers clicked rhythmically across perfectly trimmed yards, while delivery trucks rolled through the neighborhood with the same predictable schedule they had followed for years. Nothing about that morning suggested that, within a few hours, the lives of dozens of families would be divided into two chapters. Everything that happened before the letter arrived, and everything that happened afterward. Among the residents was 72-year-old Daniel Brooks, a retired postmaster who had spent more than 4 decades delivering letters, birthday cards, military notices, handwritten love letters, holiday greetings, and news that changed lives. Few people understood the importance of the mail better than Daniel. He often joked that envelopes carried more secrets than people ever would. During his years working for the Postal Service, he had witnessed celebrations, heartbreak, reunions, and unimaginable grief, all arriving quietly through someone's mailbox. Retirement had given him a slower life, one filled with gardening, morning coffee on the porch, and friendly conversations with neighbors who still waved whenever they walked past his home. Every morning, without fail, Daniel followed the same routine. He stepped outside shortly after sunrise, walked down the short brick pathway to his mailbox, collected whatever had arrived overnight, and sorted through it at the kitchen table before breakfast. It was a habit formed over 40 years, and habits like that rarely disappear. That morning seemed no different. Inside the mailbox were advertisements, a utility bill, and one envelope unlike anything he had seen before. It was perfectly plain, thick white paper, no stamp, no postmark, no return address. His own name wasn't even written on the front. Curious, Daniel looked around the empty street, expecting to see a neighborhood teenager laughing behind a tree or someone filming a harmless prank. There was no one. The silence felt unusually complete. Even the birds seemed absent. He carried the envelope inside and carefully opened it with a small letter opener he had owned since his first year working at the post office. Inside rested a single sheet of white paper. No signature, no explanation, just one sentence. The first one disappears tonight. Burn this letter if you want to live. Daniel stared at the page for several seconds before shaking his head and laughing quietly to himself. After everything he had witnessed during his career, this looked like nothing more than an attempt to frighten someone. He folded the paper, placed it back inside the envelope, and set it beside his coffee mug, already preparing to tell his closest neighbors about the strange joke later that afternoon. Then his phone rang. The cheerful expression disappeared from his face as soon as he answered. The voice on the other end struggled to remain calm. A man who lived only 4 houses away had vanished. His wife had woken up expecting to find him making breakfast, but the kitchen was empty. His truck remained parked in the driveway. His wallet, keys, phone, and wedding ring were still inside the house. Every door had been locked from the inside. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no farewell message. It was as though he had simply ceased to exist. Within an hour, police vehicles lined the quiet street. Officers searched backyards, questioned neighbors, and carefully examined every room of the missing man's home. Television news helicopters soon circled overhead. Reporters gathered outside the neighborhood entrance as frightened residents watched events unfold from behind curtains and front windows. Nobody had any reasonable explanation. Everyone assumed the missing man would eventually be found walking somewhere nearby, confused or injured. Yet, as the hours passed, hope slowly gave way to uncertainty. The following morning, another family discovered that someone they loved had disappeared without explanation. Then, another, and another. Each disappearance followed the same disturbing pattern. Personal belongings remained untouched. Vehicles stayed parked where they always had. Security cameras captured nothing unusual. There were no ransom demands, no obvious suspects, and no evidence suggesting violence. Detectives compared every case, expecting to find a connection between the victims, but none appeared. Different ages, different professions, different backgrounds. The only thing investigators would eventually discover was something almost impossible to believe. Every missing person had received the same mysterious envelope. No return address. The same paper, the same handwriting, the same chilling sentence. By the time authorities realized the letters were connected, 7 people had already disappeared, and every victim had received the exact same message. What nobody could answer was the question that terrified the entire town. Who was sending the letters, and how did they know exactly who would disappear next? The events unfolding around Daniel Brooks did not happen in a bustling city where thousands of people disappear into crowded streets every single day. They unfolded in the fictional town of Ashcroft, a quiet suburban community tucked away in the American Midwest, the kind of place where people rarely locked their front doors until they left for vacation. With a population of just under 24,000 residents, Ashcroft had spent decades building a reputation as one of the safest places in the region. Generations of families had lived there without ever experiencing the kind of fear that larger cities sometimes accepted as part of everyday life. Children rode bicycles until sunset. Neighbors exchanged homemade meals during the holidays, and the local diner knew almost every customer by name before they even sat down. The town's biggest stories usually involved high school football championships, community festivals, or charity fundraisers held every autumn beneath the colorful maple trees that lined Main Street. Serious crime was almost unheard of. The police department handled the occasional burglary, a few disputes between neighbors, and traffic accidents during harsh winter weather, but violent crime had remained remarkably rare for decades. Longtime residents often joked that the loudest sound after dark was the whistle of freight trains passing several miles outside town. That peaceful reputation began to disappear almost overnight. News of the first missing neighbor spread faster than anyone expected, and before the second disappearance, the atmosphere inside Ashcroft had changed completely. Conversations at grocery stores became whispers. Parents stopped allowing their children to walk home alone from school. Front porch lights stayed on long after sunrise, and every unfamiliar vehicle driving through the neighborhood suddenly attracted suspicious glances. People who had spent years trusting everyone around them now found themselves watching even their closest neighbors with uncertainty. Fear has a remarkable way of changing ordinary routines, and Ashcroft was discovering that truth, one uneasy day at a time. For Daniel Brooks, the envelope resting on his kitchen table no longer looked like a harmless prank. Every glance toward it reminded him of the phone call that had shattered the normal rhythm of his morning. As investigators searched for answers, more residents quietly admitted that they too had seen unusual envelopes delivered without stamps or return addresses. Some had thrown them away immediately. Others refused to speak about what was written inside. A few denied receiving anything at all, despite witnesses insisting they had collected similar envelopes from their mailboxes only days earlier. That silence only deepened the mystery. Investigators soon realized they weren't dealing with a missing persons case that followed familiar patterns. Every clue seemed to raise even more questions. The first, and perhaps most frightening question, was impossible to ignore. Who was sending these letters? Whoever was responsible appeared to know intimate details about the people receiving them. They knew exactly where each person lived. They knew precisely when the envelopes would be discovered. Most unsettling of all, they somehow seemed to know what would happen after each letter was opened. Was the sender simply predicting events or controlling them? The second question disturbed both detectives and the families waiting desperately for answers. Why did everyone who received one of these letters disappear? There was no evidence that the envelopes contained poison, hidden devices, or anything capable of physically harming someone. The paper was ordinary. The ink was ordinary. Laboratory testing revealed nothing unusual. Yet something about that single sentence changed the behavior of nearly everyone who read it. Some became withdrawn. Others appeared distracted, as though carrying a burden they couldn't explain. Friends later recalled strange conversations that suddenly made sense only after the disappearances. It was almost as though the letter awakened something inside its recipient that no one else could see. Then came the question that haunted the entire town. Were these people being chosen by someone hiding in the shadows? Or were they somehow choosing to disappear themselves? Detectives found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of violent struggle, and no witnesses who reported suspicious strangers lurking around the victims' homes. Every disappearance looked impossible. Some investigators argued that the missing residents had left voluntarily, but that explanation raised even more problems. Why would loving parents abandon their children without taking a single personal belonging? Why would successful business owners walk away from thriving careers, leaving bank accounts untouched and family photographs behind? Nothing fit together, and every theory seemed to collapse under the weight of unanswered questions. Days turned into a week, and the tension inside Ashcroft continued growing. Televisions remained tuned to local news around the clock. Mail carriers noticed residents hesitating before opening their mailboxes. Some refused to check them altogether, asking neighbors to collect their letters instead. Every unfamiliar envelope became a source of panic. Every knock at the door caused hearts to race. Daniel Brooks found himself replaying the words from his own letter over and over, wondering whether he had overlooked some hidden meaning. The sentence seemed simple enough, yet the more he thought about it, the more unsettling it became. Was it a warning, a threat, or an invitation disguised as both? Then, just as investigators believed the mysterious deliveries had finally stopped, a frightened homeowner called the Ashcroft Police Department with news that sent another wave of fear through the community. Another unmarked envelope had arrived, and this time, everyone knew exactly what might happen next. Instead, it brought him back to Ashcroft, the town he had left decades earlier, carrying memories he had never truly escaped. Ethan lived alone in a modest two-story house on the edge of town, only a short drive from the neighborhood where he had grown up. The house was simple, almost empty, furnished with little more than bookshelves filled with investigative files, a worn leather chair facing a fireplace that was rarely used, and boxes that remained unpacked months after his return. Friends from his reporting days occasionally called to ask whether he missed chasing headlines, but Ethan always gave the same answer. He had spent enough of his life following mysteries. Now he wanted silence. Yet silence had never lasted very long around him. The truth was that Ethan had never returned to Ashcroft because he missed the town. He returned because of a question that had haunted him for 20 years. His younger brother had disappeared without warning, leaving behind a mystery that neither local police nor state investigators had ever managed to solve. There had been no ransom demand, no eyewitnesses, no evidence pointing toward foul play, and perhaps most painful of all, no body. It was as though his brother had simply stepped out of the world, leaving every person who loved him trapped between hope and heartbreak. Ethan had spent years using every investigative skill he possessed to search for answers. He interviewed retired detectives, tracked down forgotten witnesses, requested old police records, and followed dozens of promising leads. But each one ended the same way, with another dead end. Eventually, the official investigation slowed, public interest disappeared, and the case was quietly filed away among countless other unsolved mysteries. Ethan refused to accept that conclusion, but even he had begun wondering whether some questions were destined to remain unanswered forever. When news of the mysterious disappearances began dominating local broadcasts, Ethan watched carefully without saying much. The stories sounded unbelievable, yet years of reporting had taught him that the most extraordinary cases often began with ordinary details that everyone else overlooked. 7 people had vanished. Every one of them had received an unmarked envelope. Every investigation seemed to uncover more confusion than clarity. The pattern unsettled him immediately, though he could not yet explain why. Something about the reports reminded him of cases he had covered years earlier. Stories where fear spread faster than facts, and assumptions distracted investigators from the smallest but most important clues. 2 mornings later, Ethan walked down his driveway to collect the day's mail. Bills, grocery advertisements, and a local newspaper sat inside the mailbox. Resting beneath them was a plain white envelope. No stamp, no return address, no indication of who had delivered it. For several seconds, Ethan simply stared at it without moving. He turned the envelope over in his hands, carefully examining the paper, its weight, and the edges, instinctively treating it like evidence instead of correspondence. Years of investigative work had conditioned him to notice details most people ignored. The paper stock felt unusually thick. The fold was precise. There were no fingerprints visible to the naked eye. Whoever prepared it had been deliberate. Back inside his house, Ethan placed the envelope on the kitchen table beneath a bright reading lamp. He did not tear it open immediately. Instead, he photographed it from every angle with his phone before slipping on a pair of thin latex gloves left over from an old home repair project. Only then did he carefully slide a letter opener beneath the sealed flap. Inside rested a single sheet of paper. The message matched every description that had appeared on the evening news. The first one disappears tonight. Burn this letter if you want to live. Most people who had received the message either panicked or destroyed it. Some reportedly burned the paper exactly as instructed, hoping obedience might somehow protect them from whatever force seemed connected to the disappearances. Ethan did neither. He folded the page carefully, slipped it into a clear plastic document sleeve, and began writing notes in a small leather notebook he had carried throughout his journalism career. If someone wanted him frightened, they had chosen the wrong target. Every instinct that had made him a successful investigative reporter told him the same thing. Messages like this were never random. Someone had taken extraordinary care to ensure these letters reached specific people. That meant whoever was behind them had made mistakes somewhere along the way. Within hours, Ethan requested permission to speak with several families whose relatives had disappeared. Some declined, exhausted by constant questions from reporters and investigators. Others welcomed him, hoping fresh eyes might notice something police had missed. One family produced the envelope their missing father had received. Another had preserved the letter inside a plastic folder after detectives returned it following forensic testing. A third family still kept theirs locked inside a desk drawer because they were too frightened to throw it away. Ethan laid photographs of every envelope side by side across his dining room table. At first glance, they appeared identical, but experienced investigators rarely trusted first impressions. He measured the margins, compared the ink flow, examined the spacing between each letter. studied the pressure patterns where the pen had touched the paper. Then he stopped. His expression changed. There was no variation. Not one. Every curve, every capital letter, every crossing of a T, every dot above an I, every single envelope had been written by the exact same hand. And if that was true, the person sending them had been much closer than anyone in Ashcroft had imagined. The discovery that every envelope had been written by the same hand changed the direction of Ethan Carter's investigation almost immediately. Until that moment, the disappearances had appeared chaotic, almost impossible to connect beyond the existence of the mysterious letters. Now there was something tangible, something that suggested a single individual, or perhaps a single group, was orchestrating everything with extraordinary precision. Ethan knew that handwriting was more than ink on paper. It reflected habit, repetition, and years of unconscious movement. People could disguise it for a few words, but maintaining perfect consistency across multiple letters required patience and confidence. Whoever had written these messages never expected to be caught through the handwriting alone. That confidence bothered him more than the letters themselves. Rather than spending his time inside police stations waiting for official updates, Ethan decided to learn about the victims from the people who had known them best. Police reports could establish timelines and collect physical evidence, but families often remembered the smallest changes in behavior, the kind of details investigators dismissed because they seemed ordinary. If there was a hidden pattern, it would almost certainly be found in those forgotten conversations that happened around dinner tables, in living rooms, and during the final hours before someone disappeared. His first stop was the home of Richard Lawson, the very first neighbor whose disappearance had thrown Ashcroft into fear. Richard's wife welcomed Ethan inside, though exhaustion showed in every movement. The living room looked untouched, as if she expected her husband to walk through the front door at any moment. His favorite reading glasses still rested beside an unfinished novel. His jacket remained hanging near the entrance. A half-completed crossword puzzle sat exactly where he had left it. When Ethan gently asked about the mysterious envelope, her expression changed. She admitted Richard had laughed when he first opened it, insisting someone was playing a ridiculous joke. But later that evening, something shifted. He became unusually quiet. He spent nearly an hour sitting alone on the back porch, staring into the darkness, without saying a word. When she asked what was wrong, he smiled faintly and told her everything would make sense soon. It was the last meaningful conversation they ever had. Ethan wrote every detail into his notebook before visiting another family, and then another. With each interview, the similarities became impossible to ignore. Every victim had reacted differently during the first few minutes after reading the letter, yet all of them eventually displayed the same unsettling calm. None appeared terrified. None contacted the police immediately. Instead, they behaved as though they had quietly accepted something only they understood. A former accountant unexpectedly resigned from the company where he had worked for nearly 25 years without offering any explanation. His co-workers assumed he had accepted another job, but he never arrived anywhere else. A successful real estate agent visited 3 different banks over 2 days and withdrew nearly every dollar from her accounts. The money was never found. A retired school teacher spent an entire afternoon burning family photographs in a backyard fire pit. Decades of birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, vacations, and handwritten memories disappeared into ashes while neighbors watched in stunned silence. When one of them asked why she was destroying photographs that could never be replaced, she quietly answered, "I won't need them where I'm going." Another victim canceled future medical appointments despite being in good health. One quietly donated valuable possessions to local charities. Another wrote letters to relatives without explaining why, carefully sealing each envelope before placing them inside a desk drawer, where they would only be discovered after the disappearance. Each family described similar moments, But one detail disturbed Ethan more than all the others combined. Not a single victim ever revealed exactly what the letter had said. At first, Ethan assumed they were protecting loved ones from unnecessary fear, but as he listened to interview after interview, that explanation stopped making sense. Several spouses admitted they had begged to read the message. Parents asked their adult children to explain what had frightened them. Close friends demanded answers. Every request ended the same way: silence. Some victims folded the paper and slipped it back into the envelope without another word. Others locked it away immediately. A few claimed it was meaningless before changing the subject altogether. It was as though an invisible line had been drawn the moment they finished reading. Whatever they learned inside those envelopes, they chose to carry it alone. That silence raised a troubling possibility in Ethan's mind. Was the sentence investigators had recovered truly the complete message? Or had every recipient seen something different? Police laboratories insisted the letters were identical, but Ethan had learned long ago that people rarely hid information without believing they had a reason. If 7 unrelated individuals all refused to discuss what they had read, perhaps the mystery wasn't the paper itself. Perhaps it was what each person believed the words meant. Late one evening, Ethan received a call from Detective Laura Bennett, one of the few investigators willing to share limited information with him. Her voice carried an urgency he had not heard before. The police had recovered security camera footage from a hunting cabin several miles outside Ashcroft. The cabin overlooked a narrow trail leading toward a dense section of woodland, rarely visited except during deer season. The owner had installed motion-activated cameras months earlier, after several break-ins, never imagining they would record something connected to the disappearances. The footage was grainy, captured beneath the pale glow of moonlight, but it was clear enough to identify one of the missing residents. The timestamp read 2:17 a.m. The victim appeared alone. No vehicle, no companion, no visible signs of fear. He walked at a slow, steady pace toward the forest, as though following a route he already knew by heart. His posture remained completely relaxed. He never looked over his shoulder. He never hesitated. He never appeared to acknowledge the camera hidden among the trees. Then, without warning, he crossed beyond the last visible section of the trail. The woods swallowed him. No one ever saw him again. Search teams later combed that entire area for days, using tracking dogs, drones, thermal imaging equipment, and volunteer search crews. They found no footprints leading back out, no discarded clothing, no signs of a struggle. Nothing that explained how a man could simply vanish after calmly walking into a forest. Ethan replayed the footage over and over that night, searching for something everyone else had missed. Every second seemed ordinary, yet the deeper he looked, the more unsettling it became. The victim wasn't wandering aimlessly. He looked like someone answering the call. As dawn broke over Ashcroft, Ethan was still studying the recording when his phone rang once again. This time, the call came directly from Detective Bennett. Police officers responding to an unrelated complaint had just made a discovery. Before anyone else disappeared, another unmarked envelope had already arrived. The discovery of another envelope before the next disappearance confirmed Ethan Carter's growing suspicion that whoever was orchestrating these events was always one step ahead of everyone else. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. The sender wasn't reacting to the investigation. They were anticipating it. Detective Laura Bennett agreed to share only limited information, but even those fragments were enough to convince Ethan that he needed to stop looking at the victims individually and start treating the town itself as the crime scene. If 7 people from different backgrounds had all become targets, then the answer might not be hidden in their present lives at all. It could be buried somewhere in Ashcroft's past, waiting for someone patient enough to uncover it. For the next several days, Ethan transformed the spare bedroom of his house into a temporary investigation room. A large wall map of Ashcroft became the center of his work. Colored pins marked the homes of every missing resident. Blue lines connected family relationships. Red strings traced workplaces, schools, churches, and businesses. At first, the map looked like a tangled web with no clear direction. But Ethan had learned over years of investigative reporting that patterns often emerged only after every known fact occupied the same space. He spread police timelines across his desk, collected copies of property records from the county clerk's office, and stacked decades of local newspapers into neat piles that reached almost to the windowsill. Retirement had never erased the habits that once made him one of the country's most respected investigative journalists. Every document was dated, every photograph labeled, every interview carefully indexed inside thick notebooks already beginning to fill with observations. Days turned into long nights as Ethan worked through newspaper archives dating back more than 40 years. Most editions contained exactly what one would expect from a quiet American town. County fairs, football championships, charity auctions, election results, school graduations, and community celebrations. Occasionally there were reports of severe storms or factory layoffs, but almost nothing resembling the kind of tragedy that could connect 7 unrelated disappearances decades later. More than once he considered the possibility that he was chasing the wrong lead altogether. Yet experience reminded him that the smallest article, hidden deep inside an old newspaper, often carried the greatest significance. Late one evening, while turning the fragile pages of an archive from 30 years earlier, Ethan's attention settled on a headline tucked near the bottom corner of an inside page. Historic Ashcroft Elementary, damaged by overnight fire. The article itself occupied less than half a page. According to official reports at the time, an electrical fault had ignited the aging wooden structure shortly after midnight.
Get back! It's collapsing!
Managed to prevent the flames from spreading.
We need to
into
flank this
nearby
side
homes.
now! More water,
The
now!
school building was completely destroyed. Miraculously, because classes had not yet begun for the day, authorities reported no fatalities. Investigators concluded the fire had been accidental, and within weeks the town had begun raising money to build a new school. Reading the article alone, there appeared to be nothing extraordinary about the incident. If a child had disappeared during such a tragedy, there should have been extensive coverage, police reports, search efforts, memorial services, or at the very least, a death certificate confirming what had happened. He found none. There was no official record stating Lucas had died, no obituary, no cemetery record, no grave registered anywhere in Ashcroft or the surrounding counties. It was as though the child had simply been erased from history. The more Ethan searched, the stranger the mystery became. Several documents referred to the total number of students present that year, yet the figures changed depending on which record he examined. One report listed 23 students in a particular classroom. Another listed 24. The difference was always one child. Whenever Ethan compared names, Lucas was the only student who seemed to vanish from the paperwork without explanation. Even more unsettling, no surviving teacher interviews mentioned him. Former students who had spoken publicly about the fire over the years never referred to a classmate by that name. It was almost as though an entire town had forgotten someone who should have been impossible to forget. Sitting alone beneath the soft glow of his desk lamp, Ethan leaned back in his chair and looked across the map of Ashcroft covering the wall. 7 disappearances, 7 mysterious letters, a school fire buried beneath 30 years of silence, and one missing child whose existence seemed to have been quietly removed from every official record that should have preserved it. For the first time since receiving his own envelope, Ethan felt he was standing at the edge of something much larger than a series of unexplained disappearances. Whatever had begun 30 years earlier had never truly ended. Outside, the neighborhood remained silent beneath the darkness of another autumn night. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, Ethan finally closed the last archive folder and decided to get a few hours of sleep. He never heard the intruder enter. When morning sunlight crept through the living room windows, everything appeared exactly as he had left it. The television, the bookshelves, his notebooks, the wall covered with maps and documents. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing had been moved. At first, Ethan wondered whether Detective Laura Bennett had exaggerated the risks surrounding the investigation. Then he looked toward the center of his dining room table. Lying there, perfectly aligned with the edge of the wood, was another plain white envelope. No stamp, no return address, waiting for him. The envelope resting on Ethan Carter's dining room table changed everything. Unlike the previous letters, this one had not arrived through a mailbox. Someone had entered his house while he slept, walked through every room without disturbing a single object, and deliberately left the envelope where it would be impossible to miss. The realization unsettled Ethan more than the message itself. Whoever was responsible wasn't simply watching the investigation anymore. They had demonstrated, without saying a single word, that they could reach him whenever they wanted. The locks on his doors were intact. None of the windows had been forced open. Detective Laura Bennett and the crime scene technicians spent hours searching for fingerprints, shoe impressions, and traces of forced entry. But once again, the house offered no answers. It was as if the visitor had walked in without ever opening a door. News of the break-in spread quickly through the Ashcroft Police Department. Until then, local investigators had believed they were dealing with a highly unusual series of disappearances confined to one small community. Now the situation appeared far more organized and far more deliberate than anyone had imagined. Within days, federal authorities arrived to assist the investigation. Agents from the FBI established a temporary command center inside the county administration building, bringing forensic specialists, behavioral analysts, cyber investigators, and missing persons experts who immediately began reviewing every piece of evidence collected since Richard Lawson had vanished. The quiet streets of Ashcroft suddenly filled with government vehicles, satellite communication trucks, and investigators carrying boxes of files from one office to another. Residents watched from sidewalks and front porches as strangers wearing jackets marked with large yellow letters walked through neighborhoods that had once known little more than traffic from school buses and delivery vans. National media outlets quickly followed. Television crews arrived from across the country, broadcasting live reports from outside police headquarters and along the tree-lined streets where the first disappearances had occurred. Morning news programs debated theories offered by former detectives. Evening broadcasts replayed interviews with frightened neighbors. Newspapers described Ashcroft as the town where people vanished after receiving mysterious letters, and within a week, the story dominated cable news, radio programs, podcasts, and online discussions. Every new report brought another wave of curiosity, but it also brought something far more damaging: fear. The businesses that had once depended on visitors grew quiet almost overnight. Restaurants closed earlier than usual because customers stopped coming after sunset. Local shop owners noticed fewer people walking through downtown. Families who had lived in Ashcroft for generations quietly packed moving trucks, deciding they would rather leave behind lifelong memories than continue wondering whether the next envelope might arrive in their own mailbox. Real estate agents reported an unusual number of emergency home sales. Hotels filled not with tourists, but with journalists and investigators, while longtime residents searched neighboring towns for temporary places to stay. The sense of community that had defined Ashcroft for decades began slowly unraveling under the weight of uncertainty. Perhaps the most visible change came every morning. Mailboxes remained closed. On streets where neighbors once greeted one another while collecting letters and newspapers, silence replaced routine. Some residents simply refused to check their mail altogether. Others asked relatives from outside town to collect important documents. A few even nailed handwritten notices to their mailboxes requesting that all deliveries be held indefinitely. Postal workers later admitted they had never witnessed anything similar. They watched perfectly ordinary envelopes remain untouched for days because no one wanted to risk finding one that lacked a stamp or return address. As fear spread through Ashcroft, the internet filled the gaps left by the absence of verified answers. Discussion forums, live streams, and social media platforms exploded with theories attempting to explain the disappearances. Some claimed the letters were part of a decades-old government experiment that had resurfaced after being hidden for years. Others insisted the mysterious envelopes contained microscopic chemicals capable of influencing human behavior. Amateur investigators compared handwriting samples, satellite images, historical records, and census data, convinced they could solve the mystery before law enforcement. One particularly popular theory argued that the disappearances were connected to the long-forgotten school fire Ethan had uncovered, suggesting that Lucas had somehow survived and spent decades planning revenge against the town that abandoned him. None of these claims could be verified, yet millions of people followed every update, turning Ashcroft into the center of a nationwide obsession. Ethan ignored the speculation. Years of investigative reporting had taught him that sensational theories often distracted attention from genuine evidence. While television commentators debated possibilities, he continued working quietly alongside Detective Laura Bennett, convinced that the truth would be found in facts rather than fear. Still, even Ethan could not ignore how quickly public panic was changing people's behavior. Ashcroft no longer resembled the peaceful town he remembered. Curtains stayed closed, streets emptied before nightfall. Every unfamiliar face attracted suspicious glances, and every unexpected sound seemed capable of sending an entire neighborhood into alarm. Then the impossible happened again. It was just after 4 o'clock on a cool afternoon when dozens of people gathered in the town square for a community prayer organized by local churches. Families, reporters, police officers, and volunteers stood together, hoping to offer support to those still waiting for missing loved ones to return. Television cameras recorded the event live, while journalists interviewed residents about how the disappearances had changed their lives. Everything appeared calm. Among the crowd stood a local hardware store owner who had become well known for helping organize neighborhood search parties during the previous week. Witnesses later recalled seeing him only moments before the ceremony began. He spoke briefly with friends, accepted a cup of coffee from a volunteer, and smiled politely as cameras swept across the gathering. Then someone called his name. There was no answer. People turned, expecting to see him a few steps away. He was gone. Confusion spread through the crowd almost instantly. Friends searched nearby sidewalks. Police officers questioned everyone standing closest to where he had been. Television footage captured the exact area from multiple angles, yet investigators reviewing every frame later reached the same disturbing conclusion. Hundreds of witnesses had surrounded him. Several cameras had been recording continuously, and somehow, nobody saw him leave. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the FBI task force. If someone could vanish in the middle of a crowded public gathering without attracting attention, then every assumption about the case needed to be reconsidered. Detective Bennett immediately ordered technicians to re-examine every envelope recovered so far, convinced they had overlooked something hidden in plain sight. Late that evening, one of the forensic analysts decided to perform a final series of laboratory tests using specialized ultraviolet lighting rarely employed during routine document examinations. As the beam passed slowly across one of the seemingly blank sheets of paper, faint lines began appearing where moments earlier there had been nothing at all. A second message, invisible to the naked eye, was emerging from the page. The discovery beneath the ultraviolet light forced everyone involved in the investigation to rethink the mysterious letters from the very beginning. Forensic analysts had already examined the paper for fingerprints, fibers, chemical residues, and hidden impressions, but none of those tests revealed anything unusual. It took one final examination, performed almost out of routine rather than expectation, to expose what had remained invisible all along. As the ultraviolet beam moved slowly across the page, pale blue markings emerged from the blank spaces surrounding the familiar sentence. Detective Laura Bennett watched in silence as technicians carefully adjusted the light, making sure the images were not artifacts or contamination. They weren't. Every envelope recovered from the victims contained a second layer of writing that could not be seen under normal light. Whoever created the letters had intended for the first message to frighten the recipient. The second message was meant for someone patient enough to keep searching. The FBI immediately halted further testing to photograph every hidden marking before the invisible ink could degrade. One by one, the envelopes surrendered their secrets. Some contained strings of numbers, others revealed handwritten names. Several displayed dates stretching back decades. At first, the information appeared completely random, but Ethan Carter requested copies of every recovered image and carried them back to the investigation room inside his home. He spread enlarged photographs across his dining room table, arranging them beside the wall map of Ashcroft that had become the center of his investigation. Years spent connecting scattered evidence had taught him that unrelated clues often formed a pattern once viewed together. The numbers soon revealed themselves as geographic coordinates. The dates matched specific moments scattered across the town's history. Ethan traced the coordinates hidden inside the letters, and one set stood apart, pointing miles beyond Ashcroft, to an abandoned church swallowed by vines and silence. At dawn, against Detective Bennett's warning, he went alone. No tire tracks, no footprints, just an unnatural stillness hanging over the fields, as if the place itself was holding its breath. The front doors were sealed shut by years of rot, so he forced his way in through a collapsed side entrance. Dust, broken pews, sunlight cutting through shattered stained glass. Nothing seemed connected until he noticed it. Beneath the old altar, one section of flooring looked newer than the rest. He knelt, brushed away the dust, and found a hatch. Rusted hinges groaned as it opened onto a narrow staircase, descending into cold, waiting darkness. A tunnel ran deep under the church, reinforced, wired, maintained for decades. It opened into rooms lined with filing cabinets, maps of Ashcroft covered in colored pins, and binders of handwritten notes, in the same hand that wrote every envelope. Someone had been watching this town, family by family, street by street, for 30 years. Then his flashlight found a wall of photographs, and near the center, pinned like everyone else, his own face. A boy at a 4th of July parade. Beneath it, a note. Present, observing, unaware. He kept searching. A locked cabinet held files, labeled School Fire Investigation. Records that never made it into the public file. A firefighter's suppressed statement described a boy alive after the blaze, frightened, covered in soot. Lucas. Before anyone could reach him, a car arrived. 2 strangers took him, and he was gone. That statement vanished from history, deliberately. Other documents showed officials scrubbing attendance records, burying Lucas's name, silencing questions. Lucas had survived the fire. Ashcroft never knew, because someone made certain they never would. The motive was clear now. Reputations, careers, power. Rather than risk exposure, a handful of influential people chose to erase a child and protect a lie for 3 decades. And the letters made a horrifying kind of sense. Every recipient had touched the fire in some way. A volunteer, a records clerk, someone who overheard the wrong conversation. None held the whole truth. Together, their fragments could destroy it. So one by one, they were removed. The disappearances weren't random. They were the systematic silencing of witnesses. Then the final blow. Ethan realized he wasn't just investigating, he was part of the story. His brother's disappearance 20 years ago wasn't a separate tragedy. It was the same secret, reaching into his own family. That's why his photograph was on the wall. That's why he'd been watched his whole life. On a desk ledger, Name after name had been crossed out, each marked with the date they vanished. At the bottom, in fresh ink, his own name. Beside it, tomorrow's date. He wasn't chasing the next victim. He was reading his own. Ethan photographed everything, copied what he could, and left the archive exactly as he found it, determined not to tip off whoever still maintained it. Driving back through a sudden storm, his phone rang. No caller ID, a calm voice. "I know who sent the letters. Come alone." The old Ashcroft railway station. No police, no FBI. 1 hour. Then silence. Every instinct told him it was a trap. But whoever called knew about the letters, and knew he was close. He arrived at the abandoned station, dark and flooded with rain. No cars, no footprints, no one. He searched the waiting room, the ticket office, the empty platform. An old departure board still frozen on destinations no train would ever reach again. He called out. Only his own echo answered. Then, on a bench, untouched by the storm, another envelope. No stamp, same handwriting. Inside, only 2 lines. "You were never investigating us. You were investigating yourself." And with those words, something cracked open in his memory. A school bell. Smoke. A boy's soot-covered face. Someone shouting his name. Lucas. For the first time in 30 years, Ethan didn't just know Lucas's story, he remembered him. The fragment vanished as fast as it came, but it was enough. The letters had never been about leading him to a conspiracy. They'd been leading him back, to a memory buried so deep he'd forgotten it was ever there. His investigation hadn't started when he returned to Ashcroft. It started 3 decades ago, inside a burning school, on a day his own mind had erased. And now, with his name written beside tomorrow's date, Ethan Carter had less than a day to remember everything, before whoever was erasing witnesses came to erase him too. Like shattered pieces of glass, slowly finding their place, fragments of that forgotten night returned with startling clarity. He remembered standing outside Ashcroft Elementary as a frightened 12-year-old, watching firefighters race toward the burning building. He remembered the confusion, the smoke, and the desperate voices calling for children to be accounted for. Most vividly, he remembered seeing a young boy emerge alive from the edge of the property. His clothes were covered in ash, his face streaked with soot, and he looked terrified. That boy was Lucas. Ethan had watched as a dark sedan pulled onto the deserted road. 2 well-dressed adults stepped out, spoke briefly with Lucas, and hurried him into the back seat. One of the men looked directly toward Ethan. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough. The man walked over calmly, knelt beside the frightened child, and spoke in a reassuring voice. He told Ethan that Lucas was safe, that everything was under control, and that the grown-ups would handle the rest. Then he made one request. Forget what you saw. Ethan remembered feeling confused, exhausted, and overwhelmed by the chaos surrounding him. The events of that night became tangled with fear, grief, and shock. As the years passed, the memory faded until it existed only as an uneasy feeling he could never explain. The disappearance of his younger brother 20 years later only deepened that emotional wound, pushing those earlier memories even farther beyond reach. The realization struck Ethan with heartbreaking force. No one had erased his memory through anything mysterious or impossible. Trauma had done what trauma often does. Faced with an experience too painful for a child to fully understand, his mind had locked away the details in an attempt to protect him. The letters had never contained magic or supernatural influence. They had been carefully designed psychological triggers. Every recipient shared one thing in common. Each had witnessed a small part of what happened after the school fire. Some had seen Lucas alive. Others had handled records that were later altered. A few had overheard conversations between officials who believed the truth would destroy the town. Individually, their memories seemed insignificant. Together, they formed the complete story. The anonymous letters forced those forgotten memories back to the surface, one person at a time. As FBI investigators compared Ethan's discoveries with the evidence recovered from the underground archive, the full picture finally emerged. The school fire had not been the accident Ashcroft believed for 30 years. Negligence by influential community leaders had created the conditions that allowed the tragedy to happen, and when Lucas survived, panic spread among those who feared legal consequences and public disgrace. Instead of admitting the truth, they secretly removed him from the town and systematically erased his existence from official records. Documents disappeared, witness statements were altered, attendance records changed. Anyone who questioned the inconsistencies was quietly persuaded to remain silent. The conspiracy survived because every participant knew only a small piece of the larger deception. The disappearances that terrified Ashcroft decades later were equally tragic, but they were not what people imagined. Many of those who received the letters recovered memories they had buried for years. Realizing the danger of exposing powerful individuals who still wanted the truth hidden, several chose to disappear voluntarily. They entered protective custody through confidential federal arrangements, or quietly left their lives behind after agreeing to testify once enough evidence had been gathered. Others were not as fortunate. Before they could speak publicly, they were intercepted and permanently silenced by the remaining members of the network, determined to protect the original cover-up. Their disappearances created the illusion of something impossible, when in reality, they were the result of fear, manipulation, and decades of carefully maintained secrecy. The investigation ultimately led federal authorities to the final architect of the conspiracy, an elderly former county administrator who had quietly influenced records, investigations, and local officials for years. He had never acted alone, but he had coordinated the effort that kept Lucas's survival hidden from the public. Faced with overwhelming documentary evidence recovered from the underground archive, financial records, and testimony from surviving witnesses, the network collapsed. Arrests followed across multiple states. Hidden files were recovered. Families finally learned why their loved ones had vanished, even if they could not always learn where they had gone. For Ethan, the victory brought only partial peace. The truth about Lucas had finally been uncovered. The secret that had haunted Ashcroft for 3 decades could no longer hide in forgotten archives or altered records. Yet not every question received an answer. Several of the missing residents were reunited with their families after entering witness protection. Their disappearances explained at last. Others remained missing despite exhaustive searches, leaving loved ones to live with uncertainty that no courtroom verdict could erase. Ethan also never discovered what truly happened to his younger brother. Whether his disappearance had been connected to the same conspiracy or to something entirely different remained one final mystery that refused to be solved. Months later, life slowly returned to Ashcroft. Television crews departed. FBI command vehicles disappeared from the streets. Children once again rode bicycles beneath the maple trees, and neighbors cautiously rediscovered the routines they had abandoned during those fearful weeks. The underground archive beneath the abandoned church was sealed as evidence, becoming a reminder that the greatest secrets are often hidden not beneath the ground, but within the memories of those who survived them. Ethan remained in Ashcroft, no longer searching for headlines, but preserving the truth that so many people had sacrificed to uncover. He often wondered whether justice had truly been served. The guilty had been exposed, the lies had ended, yet the years stolen from families could never be returned, and some empty chairs around dinner tables would remain empty forever. Far from Ashcroft, in another quiet American town, an ordinary morning unfolded, much like the one that had begun this story. A homeowner walked toward the front door after hearing the soft sound of mail arriving. A plain white envelope slowly rested on the floor. No stamp, no return address. The homeowner picked it up with curious hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Written in the same familiar handwriting were only 2 words: "You're next." Fade to black. Some mysteries end with every question answered. Others leave behind just enough uncertainty to remind us that the truth can remain hidden for years, waiting for one person brave enough to keep asking the questions everyone else abandoned. Ethan Carter uncovered a conspiracy that had shaped an entire town for decades. But even after the arrests, the recovered records, and the long-overdue confessions, Ashcroft would never be exactly the same. Some families found the answers they had spent years searching for. Others were left with memories, hope, and the painful reality that not every missing person comes home. Perhaps that is what makes stories like this so unforgettable. They remind us that the smallest choices, a forgotten document, a buried memory, or even a single unopened envelope, can change countless lives in ways nobody could ever imagine. Now, it's your turn. If a letter like this appeared in your mailbox tomorrow, would you open it or destroy it without reading? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this mystery, make sure you subscribe